Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Jamie Hughes Show. My name as always is Jamie Hughes and today I'm going to be giving you my review of Winchester. Now if you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and as always with my videos, this review may include spoilers, so you have now been warned. So the Winchester, it's not great, it's not terrible either. I don't want to be really overly negative and proper hate on this film like I've seen a few other people doing, because it does have some really interesting moments and some good bits of storytelling, which I will get onto in a little bit. I am going to flip this review around. Normally I do my good things then my bad things, but I think for my good points to make sense, you kind of need to know the bad stuff first. So I think one of the main things that really kind of disappointed with this movie was the story. Considering you already have this really interesting and organic story of the most haunted house in America being the house that ghosts and spirits built that haunt this woman, you've already got a movie that has got people interested. And I think one of the things they did really wrong in this movie was they tried too hard to make this movie a horror from the off. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was bored of jump scares in this movie. For the first half an hour, 40 minutes, it was just jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. It was really monotonous and really boring, because not only were they jump scares, but they were jump scares you could see a mile away, and they added nothing to the overall story. But that being said, once this movie started to find its feet, I think for me where I started to get interested in this movie was where Sarah Winchester was attacked by her nephew Henry. For me, that is where they kind of, it did feel like the tone and the style had really shifted in this movie, and it did feel like a film of two halves after this point, because from that point on, they actually kind of stripped all of that kind of hokey ghost stuff back and started to build up kind of a really nice little bit of a story that was blending more into a thriller than a horror. And they really started to engage my interest. You had a story, you had now like a main ghost you were fighting. But then again, the really disappointing thing about that is that happens like half an hour from the end of the movie. So by the time I was interested in that story, like the movie was over, and I just felt like a little bit empty inside, because I felt like I had so much more to give and we just never really got it. I do think that is one of the big things about this movie, is that it is billed as a horror, so they've tried to make it a horror. But if they'd have done like a little bit more research and kind of took influence from other films like The Woman in Black or like My Cousin Rachel and built up this really kind of, not like a whodunit, but kind of like a really air and mystery around Sarah Winchester, the house, why she was building all these rooms. But we kind of got all of that information thrust upon us while all these kind of random and weird jump scares were going on. So I think if they'd have just, again, slowed this story down a little bit and kind of had a really slow build and then get the climax of all these, you know, ghosts appearing, start getting these jump scares, it would have had more of an impact. Like, and again, I have to give them props for this, because after they kind of slowed this story down and started building another story back up, there is one jump scare in this movie that is really well done, and it's when like the bellhop butler guy is walking around the house with the doctor, and he takes him to the stairs that lead nowhere, and he turns around and goes, "The Winchesters are gonna die!" And that was surprising. That is when you do a jump scare right, that's when it's impactful to the story and it works. But there was only, as I said, out of the multiple jump scares in this movie, that was the only one that had any real impact and really worked for me. Again, just another point, it was like this movie is based around the house that spirits built. Like, you're supposed to have this house where staircases lead to nowhere, there's doors that lead to nowhere, there's rooms that lead to nowhere. But that was never really fully explored. We only saw like one or two instances of that, and that was like another really thing that I felt let down by, is that we were building this story around this house, but we only saw such tiny little fragments of it. And again, if they would have drew influence from other movies or TV movies, for example, Rose Red, if you guys have seen Stephen King's Rose Red TV series, they do that really well in that series. They build the house, they make the house a character. The house is always changing, it's always moving. And again, I think if they'd have took some influence on that, they could have had, it would have added to the story and really added to the horror of, you know, this guy walking around the house and not knowing where he's going. But it was just kind of all put together with a throwaway line of, oh, the house can be confusing sometimes. Well, yeah, it can be, so show it me. Do you know what I mean? And I don't really have much else to say about this film. It was a little disappointing. As I said, it's not terrible, but you do have to sit through a lot of bad jump scares for it to start getting interesting. And I think that's my main takeaway from this film, is if you can stick with it, because it does kind of have a really, like, kind of nice, interesting story that runs through it for the kind of last half an hour, 40 minutes of the film. But the first hour just does let it down, because it is just littered with kind of, it's littered with like autopilotness. It just feels like everything's on one level and we're not really going anywhere of any significance. It takes one little thing to kick this movie back up again, and it is, I'd say it is a little disappointing, because I was really excited about this movie, but yeah, it just lacked any real impact for me. So if you guys have seen Winchester, let me know what you thought about it, as always, down in those comments below. And if you did enjoy this video and you want to keep up to date with all the latest movie news and reviews, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the very next episode of The Jamie Hughes Show. Ta-ra!